Ryan, we'll start with team news. Obviously, you've got Ryan Hull and Brett Delaney back this week. What does that give you?
It's good that both back. Ryan doesn't really need me to talk him up, but he's in great form, Ryan, this year. And he's looking fit. He's looking fast, and you know his yardage game for us is important. Brett Delaney just provides some experience. We've got a relatively inexperienced, well, I won't say inexperienced, but a relatively inexperienced front row out there. So somebody like a Brett Delaney who's going to attack mainly and defend in the middle of the field, it's important that you've got somebody who's been around the block to help those two guys.
Anthony Mullally misses out. What was your view on his ban?
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. I think each incident in itself is questionable whether he should get a ban or not, you know, and therefore he did. You can't. They obviously swung towards on two of the incidents, two of the four of the same incidents in the game, which was the anomaly. You know, I don't have a problem with them highlighting those. The review panel, I don't have an issue with them saying, look, some of these are up for a ban. So, you know, you go in there and you're trying to argue that they don't. We think they're not deserved of a ban, and got some justification for that. Didn't contest two of them because we thought the bans contested the other two. So, all in all, it's probably a fair result.
Ahead of Magic Weekend, big win against Widnes last week. Talked about it, place you haven't won there since 2014. Do you think that could be a big turning point in the season for you?
No, I wouldn't use a term like that. Certainly to get over and have a tight win, which we've had so far this year. You know, it just proves that Widnes are a competitive team, and you know it also proves that we are not where we need to be as well. So it's encouraging, certainly an encouraging win. And the players looked exhausted after the game, but they weren't exhausted, and that's some of the process we're going through at the moment. I'm trying to tell them you're not actually that tired. Stop looking so tired. Stop looking like it's the worst game ever or the hardest game ever, because it's not. You know, there's the things we can take out of the Widnes game and things that we want to leave out of our game from the Widnes game. So, you know, all in all, it was a decent. As I say, we haven't won there since 2014, so it's good to get that in the locker, if you like. And we've had a decent weekend on the back of that. We've had a decent week prepping for what's going to be a really challenging game against Castle.
And whilst we're talking about the Challenge Cup, obviously in the next round you've been drawn against Lee. You're playing at Featherstone. Thoughts on that? Obviously, different environment for the quarter-final there.
There's a bit in that, isn't there? First off, playing Lee, and that's a test. That's a challenge. They're a good team. Only just out of Super League. They will have a lot of Super League still in their bones. You know, they'll be very competitive, as we've just seen what they did against Salford last week or the week before. And the fact that we have to, you know, we don't have a choice. We have to play at Featherstone. You know, that in itself is not completely alien to us. A lot of our squad play there on dual reds. We train there a lot. We've had a couple of grip games and training sessions, and actually played them in a pre-season friendly this year. So over at Featherstone, so it's not completely alien to us. But at the same time, we need to address it and just plan accordingly. But when you've considered all those things, it's a cup game. Need to win it.
You talked about your preparation for this weekend just before. How has that changed, or how is it different? Bearing in mind, obviously playing in the 3G against Widnes, and then you've got this week, and then you're travelling on Saturday or tonight, whenever it is, up to Newcastle. You're playing obviously St James's Park. What's the preparation been like this week? How is it different? Yeah, good. There's something. Yeah, again, it's a bit like the Catalans weekend. We go away to Catalans next week, and it's something you don't ordinarily do for 20 whatever rounds of Super League. You don't, you know, but every now and again we'd stay over the night before. It's not a hindrance at all, but we need to get it right. The Magic Weekend, it's a funny weekend really, because you get up there too early. If you go up there too early, I often think that some of the players buy into some of that festival attitude, you know, where the whole of rugby league is up in Newcastle this week. But at the same time, it can be good for them as well. They can soak it in and think something decent's going to happen, you know, when we play. And you know, I'm a fan of the Magic concept. I think it's good. It's you know, and the players seem to get up. You know, the games usually have a bit more about them because it's in front of everybody else. The last 2 times I believe you played Cass have been in football stadiums on big occasions, really, Ellen Road, and then before that, obviously at Old Trafford. Have you been revisiting those games at all, particularly the most recent one at Ellen Road in preparation?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, we looked at, we've been looking at our games v Castleford for the last couple of years, and some of the areas what we're not getting right, some consistent errors that we make when we play Castleford, some consistent dynamics of the start of a game that both they do and we consistently do, which can be frustrating, that you plan, prep and make a pact almost that let's get this part right, let's do this part. Certainly the start of the game is important against Castleford, as it has been for the last few losses that we've had against them. And on each occasion, certainly for the last 3 or 4, on each occasion, that's been a huge focus for us. Yet you would think, looking at us, that's something that we've not considered at all. So that's just part of the game. That's part of why sport in general sometimes is crazy, to be able to to plan one thing and there's something completely different happen. So we've looked at the last few games against Cass, looked at what they're good at against us. They'll try some things against us which they don't usually practice most weeks, so it's important.
What's it going to take for you to shut them out early doors? I imagine they'll want another quick start like they had last time.
On-field intelligence for us is important, because on-field intelligence for me would be defined by when a little bit of fatigue sets in, or you've maybe bust your lip, you bent your finger back. It's not usually like walking down the street making the same decisions. You've got to make the decisions with a bit of adversity. People use words like toughness and courage, and they're all relevant. But I think you've got to be intelligent to work it out, to know what they're trying to do. We've prepped what they're trying to do. It looks like they're going to do that. Be in that position, react to it accordingly. There's a bit of intelligence in there for us. So concentration levels and being smart real early in games, as well as being high in energy, as well as being aggressive, as well as trying to win collision.
In terms of the actual game itself and beating Cass, do you see this as the opportunity and the one real chance to break into that top 4? Do you feel it's sort of, I don't want to use the expression now or never, but it's now the pivotal time to beat Cass and actually make a move into
I wouldn't use that term either, no. But certainly we'd like to beat Cass in isolation, and we'd like to play well against Cass. I think more importantly, play well against Cass from the start right through to the end. Not have a blip, not have a down period where we look erratic. But it's, we are now getting to the stage where we need to pick wins up. We need to be winning. We need to be in that top 4. We're aware of that, concentrating on that.
Not a lot of recent success in the last few years for Rhinos at Magic Weekend. Can you put your finger on exactly why that is?
I think in recent years we've played two of the top teams. My first couple of years here, we played Bradford Bulls at the Magic Weekend, and they were a very challenging team to beat. Then we played Wigan for a few years, and Wigan have been winning comps, and now we're playing Cass, and Cass have been one of the best teams in the comp for the last 2 or 3 seasons. So, I don't think it's too far to look into it and think, well, why is that? We've been playing top teams. You either beat a top team or you don't beat a top team. It's not like we're playing a team that's lying 10th and getting beat by them, and ordinarily we're winning those teams every week, and then when we get to Magic we lose. We've been playing top teams, and that's what normally happens.
What is it like to be a part of Magic Weekend? If you were a fan and we're just going up there to watch, would Leeds against Castleford be the one game, the standout game for you on the Saturday?
If I was a fan, I think there's a couple. I think there's 2 or 3 games in there. I think both Hulls against each other. I think Saints aren't playing Wigan this year, are they? Saints are playing Widnes this year, and certainly us. 2 of the top teams who are challenging. That any one of them, and I think that there's some other stories in there as well about some different games, and some teams that are probably fighting to get out the middle 8s or get out that bottom 4. The concept I like the concept. I've often gone on record and said, would you need it? Does the game actually need it, along with the Challenge Cup, along with mid-season internationals, along with playoffs? Would the game need it? And that's only me just trying to spark a bit of conversation, really. The numbers may suggest that the game really benefits from it, financially, and bumps and seats and viewing figures. It's great. But what it is, it's an extra game, on top of our busy calendar.
And to be up there as a coach, and you said before about players getting lost in the festivity or the festival or the event in itself. What's it like to be up there as a coach and try and keep your players focused? Because the last on the Saturday, knowing that they've got games going on before them, and there's obviously different sets of supporters within the stadium, big event. What is it like?
Yeah, it's something that needs to be addressed. You can't just wander around. And Newcastle is a bit more of a lockdown than maybe Edinburgh was, or Cardiff was, or Manchester. You can't go wander around the place, and you can't go walk down the tunnel. You've got to go through different doors, and it's a bit more restrictive when you get there. But it's different. You get there and you're seeing another two teams play against each other, and you're seeing another two teams in the hotel, and you're seeing another two teams walking around, and you're seeing Hull fans and Wigan fans and Saints fans and Warrington fans milling around Newcastle. It's something you've got to be mindful of. That's all.
Just wanted to ask about Jimmy Kynors as well. His loan's been extended for another month. What's the thinking behind that?
Well, he's playing regularly, Jim, and pretty much it's as simple as that. He needs to play, keep playing. He keeps a starting shirt, and he's benefiting from that.
Another side issue I just wanted to ask you about Toronto's defeat in the Challenge Cup. Does that, for you at all, represent the gulf that continues to exist, do you think, between the top level of the Championship and...
Who did Toronto? They played Warrington, didn't they? Yeah. I didn't see the game. It was competitive for a while, wasn't it?
I think largely, obviously, you looked at the score and how it eventually ended.
I don't think there is a gulf as much as there used to be. If you're asking me, is there a difference between standards? Yes, of course, but not anywhere near what it used to be. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there wouldn't have been a Championship team that could trouble a Super League team. And now we're seeing, especially in the Middle East, we're seeing some examples of Hull KR's beating Super League teams. Lee, the previous season in the Middle East. Lee have just beat Salford. Tonto were competitive against a very good Warrington. Warrington were in form as well, by the way. So there's a difference. That's what happens when you get Super League. You get a tiered sport. But I don't think it's a massive gulf.
And just the last one on the game on Saturday. What is it about Leeds Castleford games that is special, perhaps, for you, the players and the fans?
Well, they're more special now because they keep beating us. So in the league, there's an anticipation now that let's go and play well against them. And for us, it's a big game. Over the years, all the pundits will tell you over the years, and the people who've been watching Leeds know that Castleford would always get up for Leeds. And even when I was playing for another club, there was always a story when Castleford, came to Leeds, or certainly when Leeds went to Castleford, and they always used to enjoy playing or trying to beat Leeds back then. So that still carries over. And as I've said a few times, when Darryl came in, he's got them to where no other coach could get them, and they're playing some fantastic stuff, very consistently a good team. And they're real competitors now for silverware, and they're not just. It's just not a small town trying to beat the city, if you like it. It's actually a club now who's vying for silverware. So they're a big team, and any big team playing against another big team sparks interest. Thank you.
When you've looked at them recently, have you noticed a marked change in their style? Obviously, having lost Luke Gale, such a pivotal player for them. Not
a marked change. I mean, they're certainly they're playing a little bit different. I wouldn't say it's dramatic. I think there's still some things that work for them. Gale is obviously such an important part for them, but they're not completely lost without him either. They've got some decent players in there, so I think the systems and the structure that they play to is very similar. But you might argue it's less effective. I think, therefore, you look at us and against them, and the enthusiasm that I thought they maybe lacked against Saints. They lacked some defensive enthusiasm against Saints in parts of the game. I just know that's not going to be there against us. They're going to be on top of their defensive game against us. And part of the preview process that we go through, we look at other teams. Quite often, we would say, "Look, this is what they're doing. This is how they look. We know that's not going to be like that against us." So you've got to decide what we show the players, what we want to focus on, based on the images that we see in the 2 or 3 weeks building up to us, because some of it just won't be relevant, because they'll play differently, they'll act differently, they'll have more energy. So I don't think that there's a huge difference in what they're doing, although there are some differences.
Given how the Rhinos fought back in that first game at Ellen Road earlier in the season, is there a different feeling within the squad going into this Magic Weekend meeting compared to a year ago when we were hoping we could get back at them, but again they able to put the ball clear?
Do you know, and this is the interesting thing, for the last 3 or 4 times we've played them, we've been really confident. For the last 3 or 4 times that we've played them, we've been in the dressing rooms and had a real focus on what we want to do, especially for the start. Previous to that, I think Castleford were beating us, and and I'm talking way back in 2014, maybe 2015. Were getting some results against us, and maybe I were guilty of not really taking too much note. And I'm thinking, well, that's more about us than about them. And you look back, and they've been consistent with their attack. Some of the stuff they're trying to do, they were doing back then. So for the last, from 2015, 2016 onwards, certainly we've been really, really up for it. Really, a real focused prep. Yet we hadn't come up with the result. Certainly, we hadn't come up with the start. So, that's a big focus for us to start the game.
Both coaches, when they reflected on last year's Magic Weekend, talked about how exhausted their sides were at half time in that game. Is it important to be able to preserve some energy in an atmosphere?
It was an intense game. It was a really intense game, and while we weren't at the races to start with at Magic, I didn't think we were too far off. And in Castleford, just pulled away from us in the second half. And you're right, Darryl came, said to us after the game, said to me and my staff after the game that that was as an intense a game his team had been involved in for a number of weeks, and certainly for us, and we know again it's going to be an intense game. And they're becoming like the Saints. Every time we play Saints, for some reason, they're just mega intense games. The ball's in play, there's not many stoppages. And my players normally come off the field against Saints gassed, more so than most other teams. And the cast fixtures are becoming like that.
In terms of your team, Carl Ablett came off injured last week. Is he 100% for this week?
No, he's not. He won't play, Carl. He's rolled his ankle there over at Widnes. And let's hope he hasn't been in the boot, which is always a good sign. But there's just a bit too much pain there at the moment. He'd normally play busted count. Quite often he'd play with something strapped up that would keep most people off the field. So for him to tell us that he's not right, it's like a busted ankle that is properly hurting. But weirdly, he could be available next week. In terms of damage and in terms of long-term damage, I don't think there's much there. But we're going to need some bodies that are not carrying. We're going to need some people that can get to places even though they're tired. And I think the wise thing is just to let Carl stand down for a week. You
mentioned last week about the strange party trick of Ryan Hall and his shoulder. Have you ever come across anything like that before?
I've never come across anybody like Ryan Hall before. Did Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon used to pop his shoulder in the film as a party trick and put it back in by knocking it on a wardrobe, something like that? I don't know whether Ryan did that, but you see the gymnasts, the people that do the rings and do the crucifix, and they can sublux the shoulders and dislocate them and all that. I don't know whether that's what Ryan did. I didn't go further in it when he said, I used to do it as a kid, I went, I said, okay. I just left it, put it in with the other stuff that I used to do all the time. So he's got loose shoulders, and I don't think he's completely pain-free, Ryan, but he's ready to play.
Were you pleased with how Jack Walker made his comeback last week? He had a couple of contributions in the win at Widnes.
Yeah, for sure. His kick returns are excellent. He finds the ground really well. He starts a lot of our offensive stuff, our yardage game. I was involved in a try saver and some big defensive efforts as well. So it's good to have him back.
Are you likely to have anyone else back over the next few weeks?
Yeah, we're coming close, aren't we? We're coming close. And Liam Sutcliffe, what they do with these, usually with these bony injuries, the tendons you can predict, in my experience, and the muscle tears you can predict, but the bony injuries, sometimes just plateau out, and it's anybody's guess when it starts to be pain-free. And Sutty's got a bony injury in his foot, which, you know, I've been told a couple of weeks, but it could be 3, it could be 4. It's all to do with how he turns up after the day's running. What they do is they run them for a day, then they rehab for a day, then they make them run again. Now he's running on the Alter G, which you sit in a bit of a harness. When you've only got a certain amount of percentage of your weight on a treadmill, and it keeps you off the treadmill, and they'll increase the weight gradually. So he's on the Alter G at the moment, running at a certain percentage of his weight, and if there's no reaction to that, then they'll increase the weight. If there's no reaction to that, you get to a stage where he can run freely, and he's not doing that just yet. Now, once he's up and running freely, he'd need to have at least 3 or 4 sessions under his belt before we can throw him on a field and say, you're right to go. And that's if we put him back in straight in the starting team. He's been out for a number of weeks, and he's going to have some cobwebs there. So Garbutt's the same, Mitch Garbutt's the same in that he's got the bony injury, he's had some drilling done in his knee, and you know, that's just not recovering quite as fast as we'd hoped. So yeah, there's a couple there that we're waiting on that may well be back within a month, but I can't tell you.
Is there some extra caution with Liam, given that he had a reoccurrence of that injury last time?
That's the key. I mean, he hasn't had it opt on. You know, he's had it rehabbed, intense rehab as well. And Al Jones, the doc, said if we rush him back and just throw him straight in there, and it goes again, he's going to have to have an operation on it, and then that's the big one. You start opening the foot up, and you pretty much write his season off. So we've got to be tread carefully on that. Excuse the pun. Tread carefully.